Joining us now to discuss, Republican strategist and CNN political commentator Alice Stewart and Democratic strategist, CNN political commentator Paul Begala. Paul, Alice, good to have you on. Just a little bit of news to discuss today. The former vice president there, he's not alone in terms of coming to the president's defense. And by the way, from folks who don't particularly like this former president, let's go through some of this. Ron DeSantis calling this indictment, quote, a weaponization of the legal system. Nikki Haley, who's of course already announced her candidacy in 2024, says, quote, this is more about revenge than justice. Tim Scott, possible contender, says that this has, quote, weaponized the law against political enemies. And Asa Hutchinson, also someone who's criticized Trump, says elect presidents at the ballot box, not in the court system. Are you surprised to see the Republican Party rally around Trump here, even Republicans who are very critical of the former president?
To the degree they're circling the wagons, it's quite surprising. But if you look at what the Republicans are interpreting, look, we don't know the full facts of this case. We do not know what the DA will present next Tuesday with regards to documents and data and information. But what we do know, based on what we have heard, this does not seem fair to many Republicans. This is unprecedented. This is unfair to many people, and it's also un-American. And look, I am hardly here to defend Donald Trump and the merits of this case, but when you step back and look at the overall narrative of what Donald Trump has been saying and telling Republicans that the judicial system is unfair and there is an unequal system of justice for political adversaries, this plays right into what Donald Trump is saying and what a lot of his supporters believe. And look, no one would rather Donald Trump get off of the political stage sooner than myself, but this is not the way to do it. Let the voters decide this. And when you have D.A. Bragg campaigning and vowing that he is going to take down Donald Trump, this right here, what we're seeing here, just plays into what many people are saying is the weaponization of the legal system to attack a political adversary and really to advance a political agenda. That's the way Republicans are seeing it, and they are doubling down on this.
That's how they see it. That's the narrative.
That's how they say it.
Are those the facts?
No. If they were, every one of those Republican politicians needs to be asked this. What did you say when Michael Cohen was prosecuted for the same crime? You know who prosecuted Michael Cohen? Not a partisan DA in New York. The Trump Justice Department, the Trump-selected U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The Trump administration indicted Mr. Cohen for the same operative facts. Indicted him, convicted him with a guilty plea, and incarcerated him. Now they're squealing like a pig stuck under a gate. But if there is one system of justice, if you're going to indict Bonnie, you got to indict Clyde. Now, I'm not a big fan of this case, actually. Right. I'm not. I think it's far more consequential what he's alleged to have done wrong in Georgia, allegedly pressuring people to overturn the election. Far more consequential what he's alleged to have done at Mar-a-Lago, stealing classified documents, including nuclear secrets. Far more consequential the January 6th allegations of inciting an insurrection. Far more consequential what the Mueller report has, obstruction of justice. So I'm not that big a fan of this case. But by golly, if all those distinguished Republican politicians had said the same thing when the same case was brought against Michael Cohen by the Trump administration, they'd have a little credibility.
What's your response to that?
Well, when we're looking at the same case and the same facts, this was overlooked by the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission, which I view this as a federal election offense based on using campaign finances for this. They decided not to pursue these charges against Donald Trump. Now we have D.A. Bragg with a case based virtually solely on a convicted felon in Michael Cohen and a media mogul dirtbag in David Pecker with the National Enquirer.
We don't actually, having not seen the evidence, we don't know what other witnesses they have.
That's exactly my point, based on what we know right now. And that is why we're seeing the outrage. But to Paul's point, this is not one of the biggest legal issues that Donald Trump's facing, and Republicans right now are rallying behind him based on this. But what they are doing is they are setting the stage and setting the narrative that no matter what, prosecutors and the legal system are going after Donald Trump unfairly. There is a double standard, and after this shoe falls, however it may fall, there is going to be subsequent legal issues against Donald Trump with regard to what happened in Fulton County and voters in my home state of Georgia, if they feel their election was not done fairly, as well as what we're seeing on January 6th. Those are, I think, big legal issues, but by then, in many Republicans' mind, they're going to see this as nothing more than prosecutorial misconduct.
Well, listen, as you mentioned, this may be the first of more than one indictment of this former president. Georgia looking to attempts to overturn the election. By the way, there's a telephone call there involved. You mentioned classified documents, January 6th, et cetera. I wonder, I mean, in the simplest terms, we're already in the 2024 race. He's announced for his candidacy for president. This is one indictment. We may see others. Simplest question is, can the process withstand this?
Oh, yeah. I think so. I mean, the fundamental foundation of Anglo-American jurisprudence, go back to 1215 in the Magna Carta, is no one is above the law. And so when the Trump administration brought the charges against Michael Cohen, the Trump Justice Department said this, I'm quoting the Trump Justice Department, Mr. Cohen acted in coordination with and at the direction of Donald Trump. So, and Cohen went to prison where he belongs, right? He committed a crime.
Well, we have short memories in Washington.
Right. The system, I think it can't hold up for this. And the question of two systems of justice is going to be at the center of this. So you lock up one guy because he's not powerful and rich and well-connected the way Trump is, but we're just going to take a pass on Mr. Trump. Again, I'd rather the cases move to the more consequential places than the New York case. I'm not very interested in this.
Right. That's not how it works, right? Individual prosecutors, in each case, they make their decision. Sorry, just a quick thought before we go.
Just quickly, from a political standpoint, we're all looking forward to 2021 and talking about real issues that real Americans care about. This is certainly not one of them, but I truly believe, and it appears, this will help Donald Trump in the Republican primary because he is rallying the base like never before. But this is not what general election voters want, and the independents and undecided voters are not going to rally behind someone with such legal jeopardy.
This was opening day of a very long season.
Oh, goodness. There was another opening day yesterday as well. More fun to watch. Alice Stewart, Paul Begala, thanks so much to both of you.